I never believed in legends. Not really. To me, they were just stories told by old men in smoky taverns to keep the fire burning a little longer. But there was something about the cursed village that lingered in my mind. They said it appeared only once every 100 years, shrouded in mist and silence, untouched by the flow of time. Some claimed it was a trick of the land, a valley that swallowed travelers whole. Others swore that the village was alive, feeding on those foolish enough to wander into its streets. Most people dismissed it as folklore, but I'm not most people. I'm a stalker, and curiosity is my curse.
It was autumn when I set out, the air damp with the smell of fallen leaves and distant rain. The maps I carried showed nothing unusual, just forests, rivers, and fields. But the stories all pointed to the same place, a forgotten stretch of woodland that no one entered willingly. I remember the way the locals looked at me when I asked for directions. Some turned away, some made the sign of the cross, and one old woman spat on the ground and muttered that the village takes what it's owed. Her words didn't stop me, they only sharpened my resolve. I had to see it with my own eyes.
The journey took 3 days. On the first night, the forest seemed ordinary, alive with crickets and the rustle of nocturnal animals. By the second, the silence had grown heavier, as if the world itself were holding its breath. Even the wind refused to stir. On the third morning, I awoke to mist so thick it felt like a living thing. My compass spun uselessly, the needle twitching as though confused. That's when I knew I was close. The legend had said the village reveals itself only when it chooses, and that mist was its curtain.
I followed a narrow path that hadn't been there before, a trail winding between ancient oaks with twisted branches like skeletal hands reaching for the sky. The deeper I went, the stronger the smell of damp earth and rot became. Then, just as the mist began to thin, I saw it. The village. It rose out of the fog like a memory half forgotten. Crooked rooftops, leaning fences, and narrow streets paved with stones slick from dew. It looked abandoned, yet too intact to be truly ancient. The wood on the doors was weathered but solid, and the glass in the windows reflected the pale light of day. It was as if time itself had stopped here, sealing the village in a bubble no century could pierce.
I stepped into the first street cautiously. My boots echoed against the stones, though no other sound accompanied them. No birds, no insects, no whisper of the wind. The silence pressed against my skull, making me feel like I was trespassing in a place that didn't want me. Houses lined both sides, their doors shut tight. I tried the handle of one, and to my surprise, it opened easily. Inside, the air was stale but breathable. A table was set for supper, wooden plates, a jug, and bread so fresh it looked as if it had just been baked. My hand hovered above it, trembling. It smelled real, but when I touched it, the bread crumbled into dust. I backed out quickly, my pulse racing. The legends hadn't lied. This was no ordinary place. I kept moving, drawn deeper into the heart of the village. As I walked, I thought I saw movement in the corner of my eye, shadows flickering across windows, shapes darting between buildings. Each time I turned, The street was empty, yet the feeling of being watched grew heavier. My instinct screamed at me to leave, but something stronger held me there. It wasn't greed or even bravery. It was the gnawing need to know what this place truly was. The village square was the center of it all. A broken fountain stood at its heart. The water still trickled faintly from its cracked stone mouth. Around it, the buildings formed a circle, their windows like blind eyes. That's where I saw the first figure. A girl, no older than 12, standing by the fountain. She wore a simple dress, her hair in braids. She looked solid, real, but her skin was pale as moonlight. When she noticed me, she didn't scream or run. Instead, she smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I tried to speak, to ask who she was, but no words left my throat. She raised a finger to her lips, a gesture of silence, and then pointed to the church at the far end of the square. I don't know why I obeyed, but I did. The church doors groaned open under my hand, and the smell of wax and old stone filled my nose. Candles burned on the altar, their flames unwavering in the still air. But there were no worshippers, no priest, only rows of empty pews stretching into shadow. As I stepped inside, the doors slammed shut behind me. I froze, my hand on my knife, though I knew steel wouldn't help me here.
That's when the whispers began. Low at first, like wind slipping through cracks, then louder, words forming in a language I didn't recognize. The sound came from everywhere. The walls, the floor, the very air around me. My head throbbed with it, and I dropped to my knees, pressing my palms to my ears. Still, the voices poured in. Images flashed behind my eyelids. People screaming, a plague sweeping through the village, graves being dug in haste. I saw the villagers praying for salvation, saw a deal being struck with something that wasn't human, a bargain made in desperation, binding the entire settlement to a cycle of endless return. Every 100 years they would rise again, trapped in the moment of their undoing, waiting for outsiders to stumble in and share their fate.
The voices stopped as suddenly as they began, leaving me gasping on the cold stone floor. When I lifted my head, the church was no longer empty. The pews were filled with villagers, their faces pale and hollow, eyes staring straight ahead. The girl from the fountain sat in the front row, her gaze fixed on me. None of them moved, none of them blinked. They were waiting. I stumbled backward, fumbling for the door. It opened easily now, spilling me back into the square, but the village had changed. The air was darker, heavier, as if night had fallen, though the sky above remained gray. Shadows clung to every corner, and the streets seemed longer, twisted. The girl stood by the fountain again, but this time she wasn't alone. Figures emerged from every doorway, every alley. Men, women, children, all frozen in time, all watching me with those lifeless eyes. Their lips moved, whispering the same word over and over, though I couldn't understand it. The sound rose like a chant, surrounding me, pressing me toward the edge of madness.
I ran. I don't remember choosing a direction, only that I had to get out. My boots pounded the stones as the whispers chased me, growing louder, faster. The streets stretched endlessly, twisting back on themselves, leading me deeper instead of out. My lungs burned, my vision blurred, but I kept going, until suddenly I burst through the mist again. The forest greeted me. silent and still. Behind me, the village was gone. Only trees and fog remained. I collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath, my heart hammering in my chest. For a long time, I didn't move. I half expected the villagers to follow me, to drag me back, but they didn't. The forest was just a forest again, and yet I knew what I had seen was real. The bread turning to dust, the whispers, the faces in the church. The cursed village had revealed itself to me, and it had let me go. But why?
Even now, as I write this, I can feel the weight of their stares on my back. Maybe they marked me. Maybe one day, when the village appears again, I'll hear the whispers calling me back. Or maybe I never truly left. Perhaps I'm still there, trapped in its endless cycle, only dreaming of escape.
And if that's true, if you're hearing my story now, then take this as a warning. When the mist rises and the silence falls, don't follow the path. Don't listen to the whispers. The village waits, patient and eternal. And once it sees you, it never forgets.